Hey guys, welcome back to Honey in the Rock. I don't know what episode this is, but I'm Sophie, and today I have a special guest, special to me, and I'm excited for you guys to hear her story. And so this is Casey Hurst.
Hi there. Glad to be here.
So when I was in fifth grade, me and Casey are neighbors, and when I was in fifth grade, I held a baby, and since then, I've babysat for them.
Oh no, now I'm gonna cry.
I know,
right off the bat.
That's what we said. Like, I was like, I'm gonna cry with you because we're just comfortable like that. But it's been sweet to watch. I'm not gonna look at you for this.
Nope.
It's been sweet to watch her kids grow up for these 8 years now. Mary Ellen was a little baby, and if people know me, they know Mary Ellen. So they or Chandler. So it's like they know your kids. This is Casey. This is the face of the family.
I'm the mom.
And so it's been sweet to watch them grow. And now we say when we're in the car, I have full conversations with them, and they know about my life. I know about their life. A couple months ago, me and Chandler shook on if one of us, if he ever gets a girlfriend, if I ever get a boyfriend, we have to tell each other before. We shook on that.
He wants to approve.
Yes,
any boy that's in your life.
So I also have to approve. So and then we've of course made Mary Ellen do it too.
Yes.
We got to watch out for her too. So
really need to watch out for her.
And so it's been sweet to get to be a part of their life and love on them. But then it's also been such a blessing to get to watch Casey and her husband Cal in their marriage, because I'm in their house. I'm in their family, it feels like. And so
definitely in our
to
family.
see their marriage and how the Lord designed that, and then how they parent their kids to know who the Lord is and how to pray for people and how to know God's word. And so it's really sweet just to have that example, just where I get to almost sit at the kitchen table and watch. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, we appreciate you. I mean, you are like an extension of our family.
That's what we said. If something happened to my parents, we're putting them on the wheel for me to live with them.
That's right. She would just come live with us.
So it's just, but it's sweet. And so I'm really excited for you guys to hear her story, because the Lord has done some really cool things in our life. We talked about there might not be a huge before Christ. If you grew up in a Christian home, if you kind of went to church growing up, you might not have a crazy story before you met Jesus. But our stories are crazy because we know Jesus, and so how that looks now. And so you can start wherever in your testimony.
That's a great point. There's really never been I don't want to say never been, there just hasn't been a wow moment where I didn't believe, and then this is the mark. This is the moment where I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. I grew up in a Christian family. I attended church regularly. I was baptized Methodist, went to a Catholic school for a few years, joined the Episcopal Church, and now I am Presbyterian. So I feel like I've studied a lot of the Christian faith. But yes, I don't even remember ever not believing in God. From a young age, I knew about God's love, and it really wasn't until my late 20s when I began to fully understand the depth of that love and of His grace. And of His forgiveness and the way He really loves and seeks His children. He carried me through the profound and devastating loss of my mom. She got a cancer that we were told 96% of the time people survive, that she would most likely live to be an old lady and meet her grandchildren. And that just did not happen. And so really God sustained me through that dark period of my life. But it was one of the most difficult experiences I've ever had. She wasn't just my parent. She was very much like your mom. I mean, she was my mentor, my confidant, my very best friend. I remember going to the grocery store after she died and trying to pick out a cantaloupe. And I picked up the phone to call her and got her voicemail. Sorry. And I just had to leave the cart because I was like, I don't even know how to pick out a cantaloupe about my mother. So her death really left a void in my heart that I just felt like I couldn't fill. And no, you can't fill that on your own. And I think I knew that, but just in that period of my life, I had this, I was just in the midst of grief, and I struggled to make sense of the pain, and it was just overwhelming sense of loss and emptiness, and I pushed everyone away. My family, my friends, I made some irreparable damage to some relationships, and I was just sort of spiraling into a depression. And I remember there was this one day after I lost my mom, I went back to work within a few days,
Right.
which I don't suggest anyone do. I
Yeah.
should have sought help, but I got out of bed and went to work and
Right.
threw myself into that.
Right.
And I was ignoring texts, ignoring phone calls, and some friends who are really worried about me, they emailed and they just told me that they loved me and that they needed to hear from me. And the interesting part about that is on my drive to work that day, I had been praying for God to help me stop spiraling.
Right.
I was just it had been months and I was just a mess. And I wanted to get off that roller coaster of grief. And this sort of felt like an answer. And, it was maybe more like a whisper, like, your friends are worried.
Yeah.
They love you.
Right.
Answer them. Let me in. Let them in.
Right.
But,
Right.
let me in.
Yes.
Get this out.
Right.
And I remember going home that night after work and I dug out a sympathy card that I had received from the wife of a high school friend. And she lost her mom when she was just a teen to suicide. And she was like Miss South Carolina or something. And so then suicide prevention was her platform for Miss South Carolina. And I did not know her very well at all. This card was sitting right on top, and it was the one that really spoke the most to me. And I hardly knew this person, but she shared her favorite Bible verse for me. And that was the moment it became my favorite as well. But it's Romans chapter 5, 1-5, and I'm going to read it to you. It says, "Therefore, since we've been justified through faith, we have a peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we have gained access by faith into this grace in which we now stand. And we boast in the hope of the glory of God. Not only so, we also glory in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not disappoint because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit that's been given to us." And it was like, if there was any wow moment or anything, it was right then that I thought, thank you.
Yes.
I needed to hear this.
Right.
It came months ago, but I'm going back to it. It was right on top. It was, God just sort of whispering and pushing me and telling me that He was there. And so even in the midst of my sorrow, I felt this comforting presence through His Word and the prayers of my friends and family. I just kind of finally felt the strength to not only endure each day, but to face my grief head on. Stop burying my head in the sand. Stop going on shopping sprees I couldn't afford just because it felt good at the time.
Well, I think what's interesting about that is, like you said, there's like a void.
Yes.
Like you lose your mom, there's a void. You lose anything, something gets stripped away, there's a void.
Right.
And it's interesting, you said that you're trying to fill it with work or shopping or these other things, and you try to fill it so quickly, and then it leaves you empty, and then the Lord is like pursuing you, is what I think is so sweet about this. It's not like you're like, you know what, I think I should run back to Jesus. It was like, no, He is pursuing me, and it's kind of hard to go around that.
Right.
So I think that's
right. It was finally like, just stop and sit in it for a minute and let me help you.
Right.
None of these other worldly things are going to get you through this. And sure, people might think that they do, but then they find idols and other things.
And then eventually it lets you down.
That's exactly right.
And then to let your friends help you.
That's right.
And maybe if you're a friend watching this and a friend is struggling or going through something, like, don't avoid it.
Right.
If they're trying to run from it, that doesn't mean you need to run from them or the situation either. It's like,
keep pursuing those friends and give them the space and the grief that they need, but keep checking in on them because, it might be in that moment that they're like, okay, finally. But once I started to let Him back in, and once I let my friends and family in, I just began to feel that sense of peace that everyone talks about you, the peace that passes all understanding. And it was just washing over me and kind of soothing the raw edges of my grief. Because when the first year or so, you know what this enormous sense of loss feels like. I mean, you just feel so raw and exposed on the outside. It's a strange feeling, and you might talk about the loss or the grief, and you might be able to do that, and then you might see something that reminds you of that person, and it sends you back down. But I just found comfort in knowing that, and finally figuring out that my mom was no longer in pain, no longer suffering.
Right.
She was in paradise, and that's where
Right.
we all hope to be
Yeah.
one time. And this is really a blink of an eye until
Right.
we are living eternally
Yeah.
with Him. But we all learn about the brevity of life
Right.
through loss, and that every moment should be cherished, and all of those
Right.
things. But I will say, I know that losing my mom will always be part of my story, and I'm grateful for how God's used it to deepen my faith and to draw me closer to Him. And He just showed up in the biggest way for me, because that healing needed to happen, because then 6 months later is when I met my husband.
Right.
And I would not have been ready for that.
Right.
It was almost like He knew, okay, now she's ready. And my husband lost his mom as well. And He just continued to show up for me and to show me a love like I've never experienced before.
Right.
And we had these 2 beautiful babies. And this is an aside, but I don't know how anyone gives birth to a baby and looks that baby in the eye or sees that baby and the miracle of life and can't believe in God. Like,
I know.
I've never felt closer to Him than on the days that I had our children. But
and they really are cute babies too. They actually are really pretty babies.
I think so. But through all of that, I can testify to the goodness and faithfulness of God. I mean, in the face of loss and heartache, but He's just been my rock and my refuge. And when other things come up and other bumps in the road, I go back to that verse. I go back to remembering that He is faithful, and He will keep pursuing you even when you try to take things on your own, because we are human and we do try to do it all ourselves.
I also think the timing, like, we try to rush things, or maybe I try to rush things, but it's like, oh no, this is when I'm supposed to meet my husband, or this is when I'm supposed to date.
Absolutely.
This is literally anything. Like,
Yeah,
you want to plan out your life, but then
it just
the
doesn't
Lord's
work that
perfect timing in that of meeting Cal at the right time, and then how your stories, you guys can connect on a different level, because you know the pain of losing a mom, he knows the pain of losing a mom, and you can try to sympathize with somebody, but no one's going to fully understand that pain unless it's happened to them. And so then it's like how I think a lot of people ask, like, well, when a bad thing happens, that's when you give up on God. You're like, why would you let this happen? And sure, we ask those questions. Is God in control? Why did He not feel like He didn't control the situation the way we wanted it to go? But then to pursue God and then be like, wait, I can't do this on my own. I can't just go to work and hide and responding to emails or little
stick
things
your
like
head in
that.
the sand.
Yes, and we try to run from that. But then God's perfect timing of putting you and Cal on your paths at that time. To then walk in that together, be able to be like, this is hard and this is terrible, this sucks. But also look at the hope we have.
It's absolutely true. And Cal and I are always saying, I mean, we live here in Greenville. We don't have any family here. We had these 2 great children, but my dad and sister are in Charleston. Cal's dad is in Boone. His brothers are in Chattanooga. Like, we don't have any family here. And so, we did this on our own. And then the Lord brought us Sophie. I mean, seriously, I mean, I can't even count them and how many times you've shown up for us. And I know God put us down the street from you, because He's like, we can't do it by ourselves. We need help. And you have such this heart and love for God, and you pour that into our children too. That's not by happenstance. Like, God is so good. I mean, do they have their grandmothers? No. But they have so many people around who love them and show them the love of God and pour into their hearts. And like, we couldn't be more grateful. Would we be happier if they were here? Sure. But they're not missing out. They don't feel any less loved. And I just know God's perfect timing, like you said, and He will continue to show up for us. He really does.
And it's sweet how it goes both ways. It's not like, oh, you guys have me. Like, it's also like, I have y'all. And like what I was saying at the beginning, it was this, I have an example of a lot of things that a lot of people don't get to see because of being in your home. And the blessings, like, your kids are for me, the joy they bring, but then also getting to talk to you and even like when I make a mistake,
Yeah.
like, oh, forgot to text back, forgot to, like, little things. It's like, no, you offer grace, and you're like,
Always.
you are a teenager, but then also it's like, no, this is, I'd rather learn a lesson from you because you offer this grace and this
Of
forgiveness.
course.
And like that day, me and Mary Ellen, what were we singing? My Jesus.
Yes, I will never
And
forget that.
it was just like this moment of like, I don't even know, it was like all adding up, but then just being able to sing with her, and like
Yes.
she knew every word. And they were on the podcast before you.
Yes, they were.
They were on the it was a couple, maybe a month or two ago, but it was the having childlike faith. And
Yeah.
they were in that video, and I would just like, but that recording was where we sit down, but they're always talking about it.
Yeah.
Mary Ellen asked me so many questions,
She does.
and it's sweet to see like that. This is kind of off topic actually, but the idea of like Christians sometimes are afraid to ask questions because they feel like they're less of a Christian or not as good, or you should just know this.
Yeah.
But it's actually been really sweet to almost see it from Mary Ellen, because it might not even be related to, it might be like school, and you know, it's some little second grade problem.
Right.
And she's not afraid to ask for help, or
No.
what did I do wrong, or did I do something wrong, or just like being willing to ask questions, and she wants to learn. And then it's just been sweet to see, like, it clearly shows that if she's willing to open up with me about it, that means she's willing, she feels safe with you. And it's like there's no shame involved. And I think that might come from losing your mom.
Sure.
And almost like how you parent now is obviously with this idea of like you don't have a mom anymore,
right,
or on this earth. And so it's been sweet almost to see like you live through that for her.
Sure.
And that Mary Ellen already, even obviously there's moments like I'm yelling at my mom, or I get upset at my mom, that happens, but just that she feels safe with you. And it's like, I feel like the Lord did that in your heart.
Yeah.
Like it softened your heart to
It has.
give her so much grace.
That's a great way to put it. And I learned from her because she's constantly telling me about, so and so is like one of her little girlfriends at school is Indian, and she's like, and this is what she believes, but I'm trying to teach her about Jesus and how he died on the cross for us. And she's like, is that okay? And I'm like, of course that's okay. Yes. And I love her confidence, her confidence in Jesus and in God, that she feels like it's not only an okay thing, but it is a blessing for her to share that with others. And she's sweet. 8. So I'm hoping, I mean, I learned from her. I'm like, I need to do a better job of talking to my friends about God and Jesus. Right.
It's the confidence. It's like that child, that's exactly what
childlike faith.
I was trying to talk about in the episode with her, is like the childlike faith, that there's no fear. It's the confidence in Jesus, because there's not that afraid of the little things that come in our head as we get older.
No.
And it's like, oh, we need to learn from them. Which connects back to like the blessings we are to each other. Like, it's not a one-way road. It's like, you say I'm a blessing to you, but it's like, no, you don't understand. It's like, y'all are a blessing to me, and then she's a blessing to this and this, and it's like sweet how that just grows. It
is. And I hope for both of our children, both of Cal's and my children, that they just fall back on that basis of faith and remember, like, this is the building block. And I was given that as a child, and we try to pour that into our children, and we're blessed to have you, that you help us to do that too. And so I think they have gotten it even more than I did as a child. So just knowing and loving Jesus is, number one on the list.
Right.
So,
and that's sweet. That was a part of, I'll let you finish your story in a second, but that was a part of your story of like, you feel back to your first love.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're creating that in your home.
Right.
For them to fall back on their first love.
Yep.
Of who Jesus is.
After that happened, it's like, God was just sort of tapping me on the shoulder, like, don't forget, I'm here.
Right.
I haven't left you. I'm not going to leave you. And when I finally laid it at his feet and fell to my knees and begged for him to help me get through it, and I turned to him and I truly entrusted in him to help me with that, that's when it all changed.
Right.
That's when I started to be able to put one foot in front of the other. And, I may still grieve the absence of my mother. And I tell people it's a homesickness that I feel like I just can't truly get over. It just sort of lives in my heart, but I have filled it with the love of Jesus. And I know that I will, that hurt and that pain will be forever healed when I'm at home with her in the presence and in the arms of God.
Yeah.
And I'm just so grateful that God came and fulfilled these promises on the cross, and he left the 99 for me and for you.
Right.
So, I mean, would I have chosen for this to have been my story? No. But have I been given blessing after blessing after blessing and reminder after reminder after reminder because of it? Yes.
Right.
And that's grace. That's salvation.
Right.
That's his promise.
Right. And the leaving the 99, we talked about that before we started recording, the leaving the 99 for the one, that pursuing.
Yes.
He
came after
us.
me.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. I was going down.
Right.
And he came after me. And then he gave me Cal, and Cal pursues me. I mean, we've been married almost 12 years, and every day we wake up and we decide to be married, and he pursues me every day.
Yeah.
And I try to be a loving and servant wife and love our children and our family. And you know, every day we ask for God's help. You don't wake up and that happens. No. You have to ask for help for that. And I am just eternally grateful.
Right. And it is sweet just to like, it all just comes together. Like it just like, it almost makes sense. It's like, oh yeah. And then like the unconditional love, it's like, you see that through Cal, and he's not perfect because we're all not perfect.
No.
So then how much greater is God's love for us if this feels so unconditional?
It's hard to comprehend.
Yes. It like it's so, I don't even know what else to say because I'm like, I don't, it doesn't make sense.
No.
But just like to be pursued by Jesus and then be pursued by him in such a way that's like, oh, this is God honoring.
Yeah.
And
it's the way the story was written. And I just feel so incredibly blessed and lucky and like undeserving of this family that I have, of these friends that I have, of this God who loves me so much that he wasn't about to leave me in that despair.
Yeah. It's like he literally is chasing after us. And so often I almost forget it. It's like I'm quicker to be like, God feels far right now, or I don't feel God's presence right now. I'm like quicker to say that than being like, God's pursuing me, why am I running?
Right. Absolutely.
And like that's running the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, what am I doing? And then the last point I'm going to make is just like, so the day Grant died, my mom had an appointment. And well, he was in the hospital. And it was that Tuesday, and me and my brother Jeremy were home, and my mom was like, I need to try to go to this appointment. She didn't last long. She was pretty good. But she was like, I need to try. And once we realized she was leaving, me and Jeremy were like, we can't be alone. Like, it is kind of what you said. You feel like you're exposed.
Right.
And when grief comes, with this hard thing comes in your life, you feel exposed. You feel like kind of naked, and you're trying to like hide.
Right.
I read the story.
Completely afraid.
Yes. This Adam and Eve. I read it yesterday. And my mom was like, they're trying to hide. And they were hiding from their sin, but technically we were hiding from death. Like, once again, something dark. We were trying to hide, and we just felt exposed and afraid almost. And it was like, we can't be home. And Casey came, and she picked us up, and we went to your house. And it was hard because I was the little sister to Jeremy. And it's hard to be the little sister and watch your big brother be broken. Yeah. And it's also hard to also be broken and see your family broken and all these things. But in that moment, I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, Jeremy's literally crushed. I'm crushed. We don't know. Like, me and him are just sitting in silence, staring at each other. Casey comes and picks us up, and they had a puppy. Actually, still a puppy. And I'm sitting on the couch just crying to Casey, telling her everything that's happened. I was like, I need to tell you every single detail. And Jeremy's just like running outside with the dog. Yeah. And it was such a blessing. Like, to right then, I can't look at you again. Yeah. Right then, I don't think I knew it was such a blessing. It was just like, yeah. But then after some healing came, it was like, whoa.
It was salve to the pain and the hurt. And
it was like what I needed. Jeremy needed to run around with your puppy, and I needed to talk to you. And then we were looking at Instagram Reels or something until my mom came. And it was just this, almost how the Lord just puts people in your life, how he put Cal in your life, how he put those friends in your life, these cards. And to just remind you, it's like, you're not God, but you were showing the presence of God and how God uses his people.
Faith in action. It is faith in action.
And it was like, early, for a little while, I was like, oh yeah, Casey loves us. And
Right.
sure, that is true. Like, you did that because you loved us.
Yeah.
But then when you look deeper into it, it's like, no, because she loves Jesus.
Right.
And Jesus loves me. And Jesus used her to show that.
Full circle love.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that nearness. Like, the presence of, like, Jesus wasn't sitting up. He's always there, but it wasn't Jesus sitting next to me hugging me.
Right.
Like, wiping my tears, even though he does wipe our tears. And one day in heaven, he will be wiping, well, there won't be tears, but he'll be right there. But then it's just like the hands and feet of Jesus to be that. And it's sweet that people were that for you, and then now you're that for me. And then it was like, okay, now I keep reminding something happened to a friend recently, and she's like, what do I do? And I'm like, I call you by name. I just assume people know. I'm like, no, like, Casey just had us at her house. She probably didn't know what to say. I don't even remember what she said.
No.
I don't remember a single word she said to me.
Open
but I
your
remember
arms
her
and your
being
heart.
near. I was like, I remember she sat on the couch and cried with me. And she didn't say anything that, like, solved the issue, because there was no solving the problem. Grant was dead. Like, there was no, like,
there's no fixing it.
It was just the nearness. And so I think that's, like, my constant reminder. Like, I don't need to fix.
God is close to the brokenhearted in so many different ways.
Yes.
You just have to be open to seeing it.
Gosh,
and be ready for it.
So good.
I know. I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. It's kind of like, sometimes I'm like, I was thinking, I'm like, why is Casey not been on the podcast yet? And then I was like laughing, like, of course the kids were on it first.
Right.
And then I was like, this is also gonna be funny, because for my friends that listen, people literally know your kids' names. I'm like, oh yeah, Mary Ellen, or like, oh yeah, Chandler. And it's like, they have a mom. Her name's Casey. She's really great.
They do have parents.
I'm like, I don't know why.
We do use you a lot, but
no, but I just don't know why. I'm like, I don't know why I don't say their names. Or like when I would like tag you, they're like, oh, that's the mom, that's not the kid.
Right.
Like,
yeah, the children don't have Instagram.
I responded to they have like Gizmo watches, and I responded to their text today.
Oh, good.
Because I realized they had been texting me.
Yes.
And I didn't realize that.
Yes.
I was like,
you got to open the app. And
yes.
I know.
So I was on it.
Yeah.
And I texted back. So
okay, good.
hopefully after school
I heard it come through on one of them this afternoon. So
well, I was like texting, and then I was like, I'm literally gonna see Casey in like 30 minutes. I just texted the kids back.
Okay.
But it was sweet. Chandler was like, hey, what's up? Like, hey, buddy.
Oh, that's so cute.
It was sweet. Well, thank you for coming on.
I love you.
You're the best. I love you. And thank you guys for listening. And I'll see you next week. Bye.